quotes, infused with the scent of potpourri, films we commit to memory. Crossing the felt ropes, watching from home on my TV, looking at all my eyes can see. They tell me I view obsessively.
Hello and welcome to The Obsessive Viewer, a weekly podcast reviewing 2 new or recent release titles every episode with an occasional free-for-all segment at the end that we call Potpourri. I'm your host, Matt Hurt, and you can find more of my work, including my written reviews, full episode show notes, and the complete backlog of our episodes and spin-off podcasts at obsessiveviewer.com. You can also follow me on Letterboxd and other social media platforms at the username of Obsessive Viewer. If you'd like to support us and get access to hundreds of exclusive episodes, you can join our Patreon at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. Recently on Patreon, I've been reviewing Severance Season 2, episode by episode. It's a great season. I'm very happy that it's back, and I've been just reviewing it every week. And I also have some companion episodes to episodes of Obsessive Viewer. I was a little late with last week's, but for the companion ep for last week's episode, I reviewed The Day the Earth Stood Still remake from 2008 and Josh Rubin's Scare Me from 2020. That is up on Patreon, and I've got a whole bunch of other stuff over there. So once again, you can sign up at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer for all that and a bunch more content. If you don't want to mess with that, but you still want to support me and maybe donate some money without messing around with Patreon, you can always go to buymeacoffee.com/obsessiveviewer and quote unquote buy me a coffee. Just basically donate money to me there. So that's at buymeacoffee.com/obsessiveviewer. Tonight on the show, I'll be reviewing the comedy One of Them Days, which is currently on PVOD now, and in this week's secondary review. But before that, we're going to go over some movie news and Indianapolis screenings before we review the new MCU movie, Captain America: Brave New World, in this week's feature review. And joining me once again, making his return to the podcast, is my friend and IFJ colleague, whose work can be found at awakeinthedark.com, and he can be followed on Letterboxd at the handle of, oh my god, I don't have it written down. Is it just Awake in the Dark?
Yeah.
Okay, at Awake in the Dark on Letterboxd. It's Brent Leuthold. Welcome back to the show, Brent. How's it going?
It's going well. Yeah, don't worry about it, because it's that on Letterboxd, but then there's all sorts of AITD reviews and whatever, but I was able to secure that one, so that's good.
Nice. Well, a peek behind the curtain, I did all of my notes for tonight's show today, but I forgot to change all of the information for the guest from Sam last week to you, so that was all just
tell them Sam's Letterboxd. It's better. Okay. They're going to have a better time. It's all right.
I don't know about that, but I think you guys will have equal fun times. But if you do want to follow Sam, you go to Sam Movie Man on Letterboxd.
See, he even has a better handle. I mean, come on.
I mean, Sam, it is a good handle. It is a very good handle. Oh yeah. But yeah, Brent, welcome back to the show. How's it going?
It's going great. Yeah, thanks for having me back.
Nice, of course, yeah. Thank you for coming on the show. I was originally going to do a solo episode this week, and then I just dragged my feet. That's why this episode is going up a day later than it usually does. I apologize, everyone. But I'm so glad that I have someone to talk about Captain America: Brave New World today. I'm excited. I'm excited to have you on. Is what I
wanted to be the Falcon to your Captain America.
Nice. Yeah, I can't. I'm sure. I got nothing. Well, that's actually funny, because I was struggling to think of another thing, and we'll get into this when we get to the review, but I think most of that is just that I don't think any of the supporting characters were really that interesting. So
right. Well, that's the thing. If I say that, are you thinking of Steve Rogers and Sam Wilson? Or are you thinking of Sam Wilson and or Danny Ramirez plays in this movie, who was, I don't even remember if he was in Falcon and Winter Soldier. But
apparently he was, but I have no memory.
Yeah. I forgot.
Yeah. But anyway, here's a good transition. I could be the Winter Soldier. And speaking of which, if you guys go over to Odd Trilogies, the podcast from our friends Andy and Logan, if you go subscribe to it on March 1st, I believe, I will be a guest on that podcast discussing the John Frankenheimer Paranoia trilogy, which includes The Manchurian Candidate, 7 Days in May, and Seconds. So go check that out. So I highly recommend that. I really love that show and hope I'm glad that they had me back. So yeah. But enough about Andy and Logan and odd trilogies. Brent, recently on awakeinthedark.com, you posted reviews of, Companion, Hard Eyes, and also your notes on the 2025 Oscars. How do you feel about the stuff that you've been doing over at Awake in the Dark?
Yeah, it's been good. Going to be seeing the monkey here very shortly. Going to be writing about that next. And then, this last weekend in February, I don't really care about Last Breath very much.
Oh, yeah.
So probably going to end up doing My Dead Friend Zoe.
Okay,
I'm thinking is maybe, which I don't really know anything about that movie.
I know it's
going to be playing in both theaters here. So
nice.
That's enough for me to say, okay, let's write about it. So
I know that was the Screen Unseen movie this past week that I had a ticket to see. But I watched Captain America instead. That was like the only day that I could get out to see Captain America. And I
was like positive it was going to be cleaner. That is
yeah.
I don't know why I was so sure about that, but based on the runtime, I guess I have no idea. But I didn't end up seeing it there. But yeah, I'll have that for the week after. So yeah,
nice. Did I mention on the show that we can get into that in news and everything while I discreetly look up if I said it or not on the podcast before? But before that, Jesus, do you want to talk about what is playing this week in Indy as you sit in your house in Fort Wayne?
Yeah.
All right.
I might come down. Who knows?
Nice.
It's good enough.
Exactly. Yeah. So in this round of playing this week in Indy, which is just me talking about some special screenings at some of the theaters around Indianapolis, we've got February 24th at Alamo Drafthouse, we got Crybaby, and on the 26th, we've got a movie party for The Phantom of the Opera, the 2004 version. And then over at the Can, we've got a Black Barbie free screening that is part of the Untold Stories of Black History series. That is on February 22nd, so this Saturday. That is also going to have a post-screening virtual Q&A with the writer and director of the movie. And then over at Keystone Art for their Retro Replay series, they are, I believe this will be the last one in this month of Best Picture winners, but on February 25th, they're going to be showing Argo. And finally, at Flix Brew House, they're going to have a screening of 21 Jump Street on February 22nd. So if you're listening to this within 24 hours of its release, go check those out, really. And then, again, I mentioned last week, I do want to recommend that people get their tickets to go see The Waiting Game documentary at Newfields on February 28th. That's going to have a Q&A following the screening. The Waiting Game is, of course, a documentary that I have championed for months now since I saw it at Heartland in October, and our group, the IFJA, awarded it the Hoosier Award, and I did an interview with Michael Hussein, the writer, director, producer of it. So I really want people to see it. So go check that out at Newfields. And Brent, which one are you going to be traveling down to Indy for?
Well, The Waiting Game, this is terrible, but I still have not seen that.
Oh, dang.
I'm playing The Waiting Game on that one, so I feel like if there's one that I would come down to Indy for, it really should be that one, because I know it did win our Hoosier Award, and it looked good. It's a subject that sounds interesting to me. I just... you know, this screen, the rush towards the end of the year. And all that.
I get it.
But,
Yep. Well, Michael Hussein, if you're listening to this, I will give you Brent's address so that you can...
Can you give him my P.O. box at least, please? So
yes.
Yeah. I don't have a P.O. box. I'm just kidding.
Oh, okay. So that is including our What's Playing in Indie this week segment. Do you want to get into some news before the reviews that I did not? I said that I was going to do my discreet searching for if I talked about a thing, but I did not. Anyway, do you want to go into news before the reviews, Brent?
Yeah.
All right. So the first piece of news we have is it's a somber one. We've got news that notable character actor Biff Wiff, who is primarily known from a few roles in the amazing sketch comedy show I Think You Should Leave with Tim Robinson, he passed away, I think it was this week, after a long battle with cancer. Brent, how do you feel about the legacy of Biff Wiff and the things that the legacy he leaves behind?
Yeah, it's gonna be sad. I'm gonna miss him on. I mean, whenever the next season of I Think You Should Leave, I would imagine he probably would have been in that. Maybe he shot stuff for it. I don't really know. But yeah, terrific in that. I liked him too in Self-Reliance, which is a film that did Jake Johnson direct that? I know he's in it too.
I think he directed it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's on Hulu. It's kind of it's sort of I don't even know what mumblecore means anymore.
Right.
But it's sort of like that of like a mumblecore Truman Show sort of thing. But anyway, Biff plays like. I won't get into what the movie is, but basically he has to have someone around him. Yes. So he literally hires this character played by Biff Wiff, who just is like this guy. And he's just like, can you just like I'll pay you whatever, like just be around me. I mean, it makes sense if you see the movie. Anyway, so he's in it, and he kind of like, because it's like a weird friendship. It's sort of an odd thing, but that's probably the most in terms of like runtime. I think that's the only like feature I've really seen him in for that much time.
Yeah, same here.
Because he's in that movie a good amount. So that's one if people haven't seen, I would say that's probably a relatively fitting tribute, or any I Think You Should Leave sketch he's in is I think certainly iconic. Worth rewatching. I'd say it is. Yeah. It is. So, but I'll miss seeing him around.
Yeah, me too. It was I knew that he had been battling cancer at least for the past year or so, and sad, but it's great to see him. I presume that he was working for a while, but it's cool to see him have like such a good run the last few years in terms of being just out there and doing things. That's cool for him to leave that behind, I guess. I did want to play a quick clip of a very dumb TikTok video that I made long ago within the last like 6 months regarding Biff Wiff, that this is the dumbest thing I've done on TikTok, but and this is a not suitable tribute to the man at all. It's just me sharing this clip. So it's an audio thing, obviously, since you're listening to an audio podcast. Here it is. I'm sorry. How many Biffs could Biff Wiff whiff if a Biff Wiff could whiff Biffs? So that's it. I had to type that out so I could keep it all straight. So R.I.P. to Biff Wiff, and I'm sorry.
I'll say I'm sure he would have liked that. If maybe he heard it.
Maybe he did. Yeah. Oh yeah. I like to think that he did. But moving on to other news, I think I have confirmed that I did not talk about this on a previous episode. But recently, within the last couple of weeks, I think AMC announced changes to AMC Stubs A-List. The first time that they're doing a price increase since it started in, I think, 2018. Now for most of the country, it's going to be, instead of $19.95, it's going to be $24.99 or $23.99. And they are upping the tickets that you get from 3 tickets a week to 4 tickets a week. And you can also, you can have a little profile picture in the app now, apparently. So it's interesting. This is taking effect, May 7th. So that's when it's all going to do that. Yeah, so it's pretty interesting. I will go on record and say, like, in terms of us being in a world where the like streaming services we have and the different subscription packages we have as people who like to indulge in pop culture entertainment and everything, anytime there's an increase, I groan a little bit. But here I'm like, yeah, okay, bring it on. Like, it's great because like I've saved over $500 in ticket prices last year alone with A-List. And I'm already like there's like them increasing the price like $5 a month and increasing the amount of movies I can see per week. Like, I'm like, yeah, okay, yeah, absolutely. Brent, how do you feel about this? You don't use A-List anymore.
Yeah, not anymore.
Okay.
I did for years.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what is it? Yeah, A-List. That's right. Because there's the various versions. I still have stubs, but that's just like the annual plan.
Mm-hmm. That's the one that waives the fees and stuff.
Yeah. I switched to Fandango Fan Club, which is pretty good, but it's only like basically it's $10 a month. You get $10 in Fandango credit. Okay. So that pretty much, negates that, but it waives fees for all theaters. Okay. So I wouldn't technically have to. They did this after. I don't mind doing the stubs annual or whatever because it's only like $20 a year and it waives all fees. So I'm just like, whatever, give them something. Mm-hmm. But so the fan club waives it for also. Because the thing for me is like, we have AMC, we have Regal, and like our Regal is like a little nicer. Neither of them are that great. They're both whatever, but the Regal is nicer. But more than anything, it's just a matter of like showtimes and like. They're just the AMC has IMAX, Regal doesn't, but Regal has nicer seats, stuff like that. So I was getting to the place where I wasn't using A-List and I wasn't going to AMC specifically enough for that. But so it was kind of a tweener thing. So they came up with this fan club thing, and I'm like, well, if they can waive the fees for both, especially Regal, because I think even if you do Regal Unlimited, it doesn't waive fees. It's so stupid.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. Like I understand that like they don't. I think it's like they don't have a cap on like I think it's like a movie per day thing, so they don't have a weekly cap. But like paying the fees and paying an upcharge for like 40x or whatever, like that's like okay, it's a little. I don't know.
I would have done unlimited probably a while ago because I would say our Regal in town is better, but like the fees thing just it kind of just like bummed me out. It like reduces fee, but it's still I don't know. It's just so like stupid. So I ended up just going with that, and like I've only done it like a few months. I can't really tell you. I mean, it's I probably end up paying more. I don't know. I haven't found something that's really like this is where oh god, what's the movie pass?
Yeah,
like if they get if that could actually be what's the pass for movies? If that could be actually be workable, where like the credit system like made sense and like and it was pretty good, like you kind of knew what you were getting, it would be really good because like that's the thing is like. Obviously, I'm not going to do Regal Unlimited and A-List. Right. Like both. I don't really want to do that. I could do one or the other, but I just kind of have like, it's tough. So I'm just kind of in that weird spot. So right now I'm doing Fan Club, but I think if something else would come up. So the other nice thing about that too is like, so I'm still doing everything through Fandango. So like you get the points for everything. So like, basically you see 4 movies, you get a $5 credit. So like it keeps everything in there. So I don't know. I'm doing it for now, but I'm not married to it. Yeah,
that's understandable. And it's interesting because like I'm in Indianapolis, you're in Fort Wayne, and I presume that like you don't I don't know. I don't want to presume too much about Fort Wayne, but like you said, you have Regal, AMC, and I know you have the Cinema Center up there, but like I would assume that you don't have like very much options in terms of like multiple AMCs or multiple Regals that you can kind of do that. Like me, I have like 3 different AMCs that I'm good with driving to. Like one's right down the street, but the other 2 are fairly close by. So like I have that option to where like, oh, okay, well, yeah, if my AMC doesn't have this movie, maybe the one on the south side will, which it usually does. So yeah, so I'm spoiled.
I mean, if our
with
AMC
choices.
was even like half as nice as the Castleton one,
oh yeah,
I would just sign back up.
Yeah,
but it's closer to us. The AMC is. The Regal's not that much further away.
Sure.
But it's like the recliners. Even the Regal Theater isn't really that nice. And they got the recliners 10 years ago, a little over 10 years ago. And it's not, I mean, they work there and, you know, whatever, it is what it is. But it's not like that theater is like, oh my God. It's like, that's like so anyway. But in terms of like generally, yeah, like I think, I don't think 24, 25 is going to be a kind of like, enough of a sticker shock for people who aren't already subscribers. Yeah. So I think that is kind of fine for that. People who already are subscribers, you get extra perk with doing 4. I don't really know. I mean, besides you, Matt, no offense. I don't know how many other people are seeing 4 movies a week. But,
no offense taken. I've gone on record on this show that I am single and I have no kids. So yeah.
Well, I mean, but regardless, it's like at least you get something because so much more, of course, we're seeing like with streaming services or memberships, whatever kind of thing like that, where it's just they raise the price and they're like, but look at what you're getting. And it's like, you're getting the same thing. At least with this, they're a tangible thing. I mean, the profile picture alone, I mean, you can't put a price on that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's just, it's one of those things where I'm going to be updating it every few minutes.
You know, one thing I will say about that is Regal has that for just like their points system or whatever. It's not A-list or anything. And I took like the dorkiest quick photo during COVID or something for the app, and I can't change it. So I will say this right now. If AMC, if they do this and you were able to like actually change it and whatever, it's already going to be better than just not even the A-list version of Regal, just
nice.
Crown Club or whatever it is. So anyway.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, yeah, those changes are coming to AMC Stubs A-List. We will report on it as the situation develops. But speaking of situations developing, and also speaking of nonsensical segues, there was news today. This will be the last piece of news, I think, but news today broke that Amazon MGM has now gained creative control of the 007 franchise, and longtime producers Barbara Broccoli and Michael Wilson are going to be stepping back. This is something. Brent, how do you feel about this news? This news that broke today.
Yeah, I mean, overall, it's a bummer. It's actually something that I thought was going to happen in a way like sooner.
Yeah.
Because I don't know when AMC. I don't know when Amazon acquired MGM. Was that a couple years ago?
I think it was 2022.
Okay.
Yeah.
So like, I kind of figured at that point, like, it's like, well, they're just gonna like. I don't exactly know all these things, like the intricacies of like mergers and acquisitions. I leave that to Patrick Bateman. But like, you know, it's like I just kind of figured like, okay, well, they're gonna get MGM's whole catalog and all the stuff they do and all this crap. So, but it didn't really work like that because like they're still, as you mentioned, like those two are still the producers, and so they were kind of holding out. There was stuff about how they were like kind of trying to like work with that. There's always stuff about like the new Bond movie, like, you know, in the interim between Bond movies. So that was they were kind of talking about that. And I don't know if any of the delay after No Time to Die, like, I don't know if the production of the new Bond movie has had to do with any of this.
Oh, yeah.
In terms of there being a delay. I really don't know. But it's just a bummer just knowing how Amazon does content, period.
Yeah.
I mean, just kind of what we know. It's not to say that I mean, in terms of like films, I think MGM is still I mean, Nickel Boys is my favorite of last year. Challengers. I mean, they're making good films, but I mean, I think of the Amazon banner and it's more like, okay, I'm thinking the knee-jerk thing when I saw this was like, and I, you know, said on like, we're going to get like a Q spinoff. and like 3 seasons of Q before he was Q. And
right.
Like, what would it be if he was like a young Q? Oh, I guess in the Daniel Craig ones, he is young, but regardless, this whole thing where it's going to all be all this like, is going to be like the King's manification of Bond, where it's like, it's just like, okay. And I haven't seen that movie, so maybe I shouldn't smear, but regardless, it's just like this whole thing of, it can't be good for the brand. I mean, really, like for the Bond brand, it's just, I can't really foresee it being a good thing.
I'm right there with you. Like, it's something that I feel like you're right on the money. Like the spinoffs, the TV shows and everything that are going to come out of this it's going to be the same. I really feel like it's going to be the same as like what Disney did with Star Wars. It's like just really spreading everything too thin, doing like just scattershot stuff that's not gonna, I don't think I assume it won't land, but like I would
feel better about it if during the announcement, and maybe I missed this, I kind of skimmed the article, but like if they kind of reasserted like, no, Bond is going to be in theaters and like we're about making Bond movies and those sort of things. If that was in there, I missed it. Because
I don't think it was in there. Yeah.
I'm getting the sense that they're probably like, no, we're going to keep all options on the table. And I mean, they already did. I mean, they've already tried to do basically like a Tom Clancy verse.
Right.
I mean, so I know they had with like Jack Ryan, they had that Without Remorse movie, which was actually good. I haven't seen the Jack Ryan series. I've heard good things, but they had a tease at the end of that where they were going to, I think, tie in like Rainbow Six with that. And again, that is what it is. I mean, and that's that brand, and who knows, maybe that could be good or could have been good. I don't know. But it's different when it's like they've done all of these films and it's always been a theatrical thing. And it just cheapens it when you when you potentially have all of these other TV shows. I don't know. Best case, if I'm thinking best case scenario, right? If I'm trying to put on rose-colored glasses, it would be that they would basically say like, no, we're gonna release like a Bond film when it's ready. Through MGM. It's gonna be a theatrical experience.
That's
and do it right. I don't know. That's the best thing that I think can come from it. But I mean, that's if the best case scenario is what has already happened for decades, then there are a lot of other worse scenarios that could happen. So.
Right. Yeah. And like, I recognize that we, and a lot of people are being alarmist about it, assuming that it's going to be this just like stretched too thin, sort of just kind of trying to cover all bases sort of thing from Amazon. But like, I mean, it would be amazing if they went at it with that type of attitude. Like, it's just going to be theatrical release movies. Will be like every 2 years, a new Bond movie to keep it going and everything. Like, that would be good. I would be happy with that. But I don't see that happening.
Well, since I was already Pollyanna for the good news part, the other bad news part about this is, well, there's a lot potentially, but one is the whole MGM Plus gambit, that whole tangent.
Jesus.
Like, where it's like, no, it's not even going to be Jack Ryan or Reacher where you see it on Prime. It's, you have to sign up for MGM Plus.
Right.
To see, think if you would have to see, sign up for MGM Plus to see the new Bond movie.
Oh my God. Nope.
Think about that and tell me you don't want to walk into the ocean. Yeah,
exactly.
So like, that's the sort of, if we are being alarmist, that's the kind of alarm bells that I'm worried about for hearing.
I would hope no matter what that they I don't know. I don't even want to like I don't want to speculate, because I would hope that, like, oh yeah, you can watch the new Bond movie on MGM Plus. I would hope that it would be like, at least be like after a theatrical run. Like, these are theatrical movies that need to be theatrical. So I know
people made this joke, but Jeff Bezos, he'd do a great Bond villain.
Right. Exactly.
Just saying. And don't even try to tie it. Well, that they will. They're going to tie him into, they're going to say it's like Blofeld's son or something like that, or his cousin or his brother or something like that. It's like, oh my God, of course you couldn't resist the.
Right.
Anyway.
The crazy thing The crazy thing about this, I'm going to spin this into a positive. I don't know who owns the rights to Austin Powers.
Yeah.
But they can finally bridge the gap between Austin Powers and James Bond by just showing footage of Jeff Bezos's penis mobile in space.
Yeah.
There we go.
I mean, yeah, I don't know who is over the Austin Powers thing, who owns that, but yeah, we'll just try to think positive about it, because I think what will ultimately happen probably won't be a great thing. So
I agree.
We can at least dream.
Yep. I have no segue. I'm not going to try a shitty one, but this will be the final news thing, and this is more just a PSA for people that next week on the show I'm going to be reviewing The Monkey and something else. I'm not sure yet, but and Brent, you are about to go see The Monkey here in a little bit after we record. Did you see that there is a post-credit scene that teases? Do you want me to tell you what it is? It's nothing to do with the plot of the movie.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, it teases Osgood Perkins' next movie called Keeper. So make sure you stay through the credits.
Cool. That's good. I don't know that I would have. Sometimes they keep the lights down. Sometimes they don't.
Yep.
You never know.
Right.
But that's good. Yeah.
So keep that in mind. And Brent, what do you say we go into our feature review of the evening for Captain America: Brave New World?
Sounds great.
All right, so we're going to go into our featured review this week. I'm going to later do a solo review of One of Them Days, and then we might do a potpourri section. I don't know yet. I didn't clear that with Brent, but but for this feature review, we are, of course, going to do a non-spoiler review, and then we are going to transition into a spoiler review. I will give you guys fair warning, and I have timestamps in the show notes of the episode, which those show notes are also available at obsessiveviewer.com/OV467. And Captain America: Brave New World is currently in theaters. It was released in theaters February 14th. And the premise, according to IMDb, is Sam Wilson, the new Captain America, finds himself in the middle of an international incident and must discover the motive behind a nefarious global plan. Director for this movie was Julius Ona, and writers were Rob Edwards, Malcolm Spellman, and Delon Musson, and Julius Ona, and Peter Glanz. And the cast includes Anthony Mackie, Harrison Ford, Danny Ramirez, Shira Haas, Carl Lumbly. I don't know if I want to say this villain's name because he's hidden, but very, very, very haphazardly hidden. And Giancarlo Esposito. So Brent, in non-spoilers, let's get our non-spoiler review going. What were your expectations going into Brave New World, and how did you feel about the movie?
Yeah, so I feel like I haven't seen like a Marvel movie in a theater in a little while, just because Deadpool and Wolverine didn't really quite feel like MCU, because those like aren't really characters who were like in the MCU before that. So like that was almost like more like the last 20th century movie. Anyway, or Fox, whatever.
Right.
Anyway, so this was kind of like, I feel like in a way almost sort of like getting back in the groove of, for me, like the MCU, and we have Thunderbolts asterisk and Fantastic Four first steps coming out this year. So I feel like it's like, all right, well, we're getting back, and the trough is ready and the machine is clicking again. So saw a lot of trailers for this ahead of time, and I like Anthony Mackie. I like him in the MCU. This is obviously his first movie as Captain America since he was kind of handed the shield proverbially in Falcon Winter Soldier, the 2021 MCU series. So, I mean, for me, like kind of going into the movie, I was like, well, it's kind of been a little while, since that series. And, there's kind of been this, like, I feel like this period where we've been Captain America-less, I suppose. So I was curious to see what they do with it. Overall, not very good generally. It's just one of those movies that I think I think it really suffered from a lot of competing forces pulling it in a lot of different ways. It very much feels like, MODOK's face in my favorite Ant-Man movie, Quantumania, is like stretched right. over it's stretched in a really weird, gross way. Mm-hmm. I feel like that's story-wise or metaphorically or direction-wise, like is what this movie, it just got pulled in a lot of like different directions, and there were, it's sort of blood in the water with MCU stuff. I feel like with movie news, they get like, it's like, oh, they're doing reshoots again, and then Julius Onah said he wasn't happy with this, and then Harrison Ford was grumpy, it's like all this stuff. So it's kind of one of those movies that does feel like it was kind of like marked before it came out. But regardless of what all that stuff is, the movie either, I think, kind of wins on its own or it loses on its own. And I think this is just one that just doesn't work. It's just not, it's just very ramshackle, and it's very, it's not that it feels rushed. It just feels very distracted from what it wants to do with this iteration of Captain America. So, I think people have been maybe a little hyperbolic about like I don't think it's really a good movie, but I do think that they can do a good Captain America movie. Like I think Anthony Mackie is very strong in this, and I think actually some of the secondary stuff we'll talk about that, but I actually think that was probably the best part of the movie for me in terms of just characters, just because there were character moments. Besides that, it's all plot, but regardless, it's one of those ones where it's like, I don't really know where they'll go from here. I mean, I assume it's just still a big property, and it still did whatever 100 million this weekend. So I'm sure they'll get, another, Anthony Mackie will get another shot at Captain America on the big screen. But it's a disappointing first chapter for this version of it.
Yes, well said. I agree pretty much across the board. I was really looking forward to this because I was pulled in by the trailers. I really like Anthony Mackie as Captain America. Like the final episode of Falcon and the Winter Soldier had some really fun action set pieces with him in the uniform and doing his thing. And like, one of the interesting things about the movie is like the way that he is not only just like taking the shield and everything, he still has his wings and everything, and like the utilization of those in addition to the shield and like the kind of kinetic energy of the set pieces with that, I felt was something that had a lot of promise in terms of showing a lot of versatility and change, like different variations of action sequences. And for the most part, like the set pieces, the action, the combat stuff did not like it did not fail me. Like I was into it. But the structure of the movie, the plot, like it felt like feeling like it was being pulled in so many different directions is absolutely correct. Like that, I totally agree. But it also felt like, I don't know, it felt like the writing just wasn't there. Like it really felt like, okay, we need to communicate this thing in the plot. So let's just talk about it directly. Let's not like use any kind of like put any like spin on the language or like put any like flair into it or anything. Let's just talk directly about the plot and the needs of the plot. And also, like the blueprint of the movie feels like it is just like a piecemeal of the things that worked in the last two Captain America movies.
Right. And
just trying to imitate that or emulate that, even down to like the first set piece when like he's fighting the guys. It like feels like exactly like him taking on Steve Rogers taking on Crossbones or whatever in Civil War, I think. It felt just so like a greatest hits thing. And I don't want to put anything like this is my like theory. I have no basis for this. I don't know. I have no idea, but I feel like that was maybe something that was mandated into the movie by the studios. Like, well, you know, we like Chris Evans. No, that's his name, right? Chris Evans. Jesus Christ.
Well, or Steve Rogers, you know, is that iteration of Captain America.
Like Chris Evans is out as Captain America. He was great. Like all that. Now we've got Anthony Mackie, who, despite being in several movies as Falcon, like I feel like there's this like level of not trusting him to deliver and be like an effective, like Sam Wilson being an effective like replacement for Steve Rogers, but that is all. I don't know what that could be or why that would be, but I mean, they gave him a whole show, and like I was okay with the show. Like I thought it was solid, but like I just wish that there was something more distinctive about the plot and the areas that it went to with this new Captain America, and it just didn't feel like it was quite there.
Yeah, and I think it being so distanced from when the show came out. I mean, I looked it up. It's almost a full 4 years after the show, and I think it really kind of suffers from that. Now I know the MCU. It's like they always have stuff happening, and like they have to structure stuff. So sometimes there are like, you know, stuff gets delayed. But so I'm not saying it's necessarily the movie's fault, but it does affect how I felt about the movie. Like if this had come out like, certainly in 22, but even in like 23 or something, you know, I know there were actor strikes and COVID, and there's been a lot of variables over the past few years, to be fair. But, you know, it's that doesn't do this movie any favors, because it just doesn't really establish, again, what this character is about in terms of him being very, very different from Steve Rogers. And this is a movie that I think thematically has things in it that I think are good, and it probably were the start of the building blocks for how this movie went in terms of how Sam Wilson feels about being, you know, a replacement, him feeling insecure. Like those scenes I think are some of the better ones in terms of character scenes in this, because it speaks, I mean, there is a meta quality to it, because I'm sure Anthony Mackie has to be feeling like, well, I have big shoes to fill in terms of Chris Evans, you know, in kind of taking up the mantle there. So I like the way that does play on both levels. But again, like that's literally, if that's the most that you can say about this character, it's like you need more than that. And I think, you know, again, from his performance is good in this, and I think he's been good, and he's been in a ton of MCU movies. But you know, I think if I were Anthony Mackie, I'd be pretty let down. I mean, at this point, you can't say no to your own Captain America movie. But I mean, it's just a bummer that like this is kind of the spotlight that he gets, and it doesn't feel like the coronation that it should. So.
Absolutely agree. And like those moments where he has that self-doubt and that those like reservations about taking on the mantle and like doing the Captain America thing, like those are the best parts of the movie for me. And like I kind of said before, I alluded to before, like the supporting characters don't really are not that well fleshed out throughout the movie for me. And it's like those moments where he has those doubts, he's communicating those doubts. It's like they are done so just like kind of not randomly, but kind of off the cuff, that it feels like it's trying to be subtle about it, but it's not committing to it. And then you've got like a whole bunch of stuff that's like from previous installments of the MCU that's trying to put things together, and like there's a lot going on, and I just wish that it was more focused on, you know, Sam Wilson being Captain America, doing the Captain America thing, trying to fill the shoes of Steve Rogers, and like having a lot about like him wrestling with the fact that he doesn't have the super soldier serum or anything, and having that kind of be a thing.
Yeah, that's another thing too, and that's a plot point about him not having, because and this is actually segues into the thing I was going to mention. So when I saw I saw the trailer for this many times in theaters, and I was like, okay, I understand he has the suit and everything, But like, how is he going to go up against a Hulk?
Yeah.
And I understand that's the point of these Marvel movies is what if this guy and this guy fought? And sorry if I'm making fun of people who like, I'm sorry. Anyway,
it's fine.
So anyway, like that actually was what I was thinking. I was like, well, he doesn't, and I literally had to ask, like, he doesn't have the super soldier serum. Like he's a dude. He's, you know, he's good at hand-to-hand combat and aerial combat and all this stuff. And like, so he doesn't. So it's like, okay, well, yeah, I guess that would be interesting to watch them fight. It doesn't really even seem like he should have a chance. I'm not going to spoil how the fight goes.
Sure.
But anyway, so that is a part of it in terms of him not having the serum. That's another part of it. And part of him, how he's different from Steve Rogers. I don't think really thematically they do much with that other than to say, well, I don't have that. I guess with the Carl Lumbly character. But anyway, but that's another one I think is this movie. I mean, just this whole like Hulk thing. Like, okay, so Thor Ragnarok, I'm not quite as high on as other people. And I honestly think one of the big reasons for me is it just turns into such a Hulk movie. And it was just one of those things that now that movie I think is actually stronger. Like, I think they could have, in my opinion, I think they could have actually held that. I think they could have withheld the Hulk in that movie from the marketing because I think they had enough of a movie. It's already enough of a Thor movie. It's the third Thor movie. So like there's other stuff they could have done. There's other stuff they could have marketed. Now I get it. They wanted to put Hulk in there so they get more butts in the seats and they get more money. That's fine. That's their thing. It didn't ruin the movie for me, but I don't think I'm as high on that movie. I think honestly, that's one of the big reasons for me. Now with this one, I mean, okay, so not only is it they're gonna make the Red Hulk thing, which totally takes the wind out of the sails of like what the climactic battle. Like, sorry, this is a big part of the movie that they're putting in the marketing.
Oh, absolutely, and it's designed as a surprise, basically throughout the whole movie.
I mean, in the movie, they treat it like, oh man, you're never gonna believe this.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, I would actually. I saw the trailer like quite a few times. So that's another bummer. And I think that's, again, why I'm seeing this as like a thing for Mackie. It's like, it's like this idea of like, they don't trust it enough to stand on its own. Like they have to put the Hulk stuff in there because they know that'll, and I bet that was definitely something that was like a production thing where there at a certain point, Kevin Feige's like, and we don't really have much of a movie here. Let's just throw Hulk at it.
Right.
Like, and that's the way it felt to me.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And like, it just feels so haphazard is the best way I can kind of describe it. It just feels like, I don't know. It feels like I wish it would have built up better to that reveal, to that kind of big set piece and everything. Because by the time we get to that, first of all, there's some very just atrocious green screen work there.
Yeah, for sure.
That's just really, really, really bad. But like, there's also like this level of like the movie trying to be fun, but not committing to the fun angle of it. Like, Anthony Mackie has some good quips here and there, some good like dialogue, but like, it's even in the trailer, like, the reveal of Red Hulk and being like one of the reporters or whoever was in the crowd is like, since when are they red? It's like I get it, that's a fun like comic book line, but it's also like this is a major point in the movie. Like I don't, it didn't really tickle my funny bone. But it's also
I don't think if the president of the United States turned into whatever in this universe. Yeah, I get that they've seen a Hulk before.
Yeah,
but I don't think you'd be like, oh, why is he red?
Yeah,
like, I think you'd be running for your life. Which, no, and you're right. I mean, there's not really a lot of, it's just not. It's not a very fun movie.
It's not.
I think it's because it's not a very good movie.
Yeah, and it should be fun. Yeah, like it should be fun. But it falls so flat across the board. But there is something that's interesting about that. Like you brought up Thor Ragnarok, which I love Thor Ragnarok, but I understand like why you hate me. But
I'm glad I made it clear.
Yeah. But it's interesting because I haven't looked into it or anything, but like I'm assuming that Paramount still has the rights to the Hulk or something, or like, because that's what, like, this is damn near a sequel to The Incredible Hulk, and they had She-Hulk, but there hasn't been like a Hulk movie since The Incredible Hulk in 2008, and it's just
isn't there some weird thing, kind of like how Spider-Man, like Sony technically still has the rights, but they're like leasing them to the MCU or to Marvel Studios. So like, that's weird. Isn't that the reason why there hasn't been a solo Hulk movie besides the one in 2008?
I believe so. So, well, I don't know. I
think there was some. I thought, because like I think around the time like Ragnarok came out, I don't know if this was like kind of circulating again, but like I was thinking, I was like, why don't they just make a solo Hulk movie if people like Hulk so much? But I think it actually might have to do. I think maybe it is Paramount. I think some studio owns the rights, and so that's why we get this kind of like, this like, oh well, it's not quite Hulk, so like, but I mean, even with this, like, again, for me, it's more just, it speaks to the fact that they don't trust this. They don't trust this as its own Captain America movie, like Sam Wilson as Captain America. They have to bring in, one of the other characters. I know that was a complaint people had with Spider-Man Homecoming and having Iron Man, like, Robert Downey Jr. like in the movie and kind of, but I don't know, maybe I'm just a total hypocrite, but to me, like, that's, I think, a different scenario, and I think they actually weave him into that. He's also not in that movie a ton, but it's very much a surrogate father thing. I think all of his scenes work thematically within the movie. Yeah, that's actually still my favorite MCU Spider-Man movie. But regardless, like, there was a point to it. In this, the point of it is that it's Red Hulk. And the reason he's here is that so that we make more money. Yes. I guess back in 2017, I just didn't feel that way about Homecoming. I was excited to see Spider-Man in the MCU. Yeah, sure that Iron Man and all that was there. Great. But now it's just kind of like, just throw the Red Hulk at him. It's different. It's not green, it's red. So, and I mean, based on, I haven't read the comics, but apparently, same. It's kind of like, Venom, how like they've, in the movies, like they've definitely sanded off the edges with that. Like Red Hulk, I think, I don't know if it's like a quote unquote similar character, but I think he's a lot more savage. Like he's supposed to be. That's what I've heard. Yeah, like a lot more violent, and so it's probably even more galling if you know what the character's like. It's like, no, this Red Hulk isn't really actually any different than the Green Hulk. So anyway, yeah, it basically becomes like a King Kong movie for a moment, and like it's there, it's done, whatever. We'll talk about that in spoilers, but I did some quick Googling, and I can't really say, like, what I think it was Universal that has the rights to Hulk, but at least the rights to the Incredible Hulk, I couldn't tell if this was the Incredible Hulk the movie from 2008 or the property of the Incredible Hulk, but that didn't revert back to Marvel until June 2023, and that's when the Incredible Hulk was finally added to Disney Plus. So I don't even know if like the character rights have gone back to Marvel, but just the streaming rights for one of the movies has gone back to it. But and not even a particularly good one. I'm not a fan of the Incredible Hulk 2008. And they had to basically, I mean, not really retcon, but I mean, they recast, as Mark Ruffalo, who has been, Hulk in all of the other movies. So, no one really thinks of, I don't think Edward Norton is the Hulk anyway. Right. So, someone, I think Matt Singer said the Incredible Hulk is kind of the green-headed stepchild of the MCU. Like it's kind of part of it, but not really. They have the Iron Man tie-in. They both came out the same summer of 2008, Iron Man and Incredible Hulk. But Iron Man is just way better. Yeah. and I liked the Incredible Hulk quite a bit, but also, like, it's weird. Like, you're absolutely right. Like, Mark Ruffalo is the Hulk in the MCU. Right. Yeah. And like so much of his story from the different movies he's been in, not
like the Incredible Hulk, not like a standalone Hulk movie, but all the stuff he's been in, like a lot of his character has been just like really good characterization, really good development, none of which has anything to do with the Incredible Hulk movie. Like, like it is so just like not pertinent to the MCU, so much so that it's so weird that this movie takes so much from that movie, like goes back to that movie, and we'll talk in specifics and spoilers, but like, it's so bizarre to have like this be basically a sequel to the Incredible Hulk, the second movie in the MCU, almost 20 years ago, and have it just not be like anything really pertaining to the Incredible Hulk as a character. Like, it's bizarre to me. It's weird.
Well, and that's the thing. I think, again, I can't imagine when they first started developing, or even a little bit down the road for the Captain America movie, they even thought, yeah, this is going to be a sequel to the Incredible Hulk. I think it's because they had to like contort it and all this stuff. And it's like, well, we have Harrison Ford and he's got to be Red Hulk. So let's like tie it back to this other thing. So because they're like allergic to having just like a standalone movie that's like its own. I mean, that's just not the MCU way.
Right.
And usually it works out. Sometimes it doesn't. And there are times it really doesn't. So, so yeah, I mean, even though I don't really care for the Incredible Hulk 2008 one, I do wish I had rewatched it.
Because,
me
too, kind of.
I mean, it ties in relatively closely. I mean, there's definitely like multiple plot points that would have been good for me to refresh on, but it's okay.
But fortunately, there is this ridiculous exposition drop that basically opens the movie, essentially. That's like, it catches us up with not only the Incredible Hulk, but like another movie that is pertinent to the MCU. That is also forgotten.
That one I'm not worried about not rewatch. We would have to say which one, but I'm not worried about that one because anyway.
Yeah, I could go an eternity with not watching the movie again.
Yes. Very good.
Yes. So yeah, it's just a weird thing. Do you want to kind of start going into spoilers for Captain America: Brave New World? Okay. So we're gonna go ahead and go into spoilers for Brave New World. Before we do that, Brent, what did you rate this movie on Letterboxd?
I gave it a 2 out of 5. I don't think it's like the worst MCU movie. I think they've made, maybe worse ones or whatever. But I think like as a like kind of as a starting entry to something, I think it's pretty disappointing, I would say. And it does feel like the most kind of like tawdry is not a word, like packaged movie. Like I think the seams really show on this one. So I think in that way it's pretty disheartening.
Yeah, I agree. I ended up rating it 3 stars with no heart. So I could see that going down to 2.5 stars the more I think about it. But I think that like for the stuff that works, as small as those parts are, it works really well. Like basically the Anthony Mackie of it all works really well for me. Everything else just doesn't fit right, doesn't feel right, feels like it's rehashing old movies, rehashing old plot lines. And that was a drag. But the combination of Anthony Mackie's, the set pieces I actually enjoyed. Like it didn't blow my hair back, but it was solid. So rated at 3 stars. Yeah. And let's go into spoilers for Captain America: Brave New World. I'm going to play a clip from the trailer. If you want to skip the spoiler section, go to the show notes. Go to the show notes at obsessiveviewer.com/OV467, or just look in the notes on your podcast app that you're listening to this on. So I'm going to play a clip from the trailer. When we come back, we're going to be spoiling Captain America: Brave New World.
Whatever this is, Cap, be careful. What do we know?
There were 5 shooters. This was a coordinated terrorist attack, sir.
I was a wartime general. Now I'm a wartime president.
Your inner circle's been compromised. Let me fix it.
Watch yourself. You're not Steve Rogers. You're right. I'm not. Wait for it.
All right, so spoilers on for Captain America Brave New World. Brent, I have a couple of gripes I want to bring up, a couple of things that kind of irked me that are pretty small. Two things really. One is something that our friend Evan pointed out, that he doesn't have the super soldier serum, but he's like breaking the sound barrier when he's flying.
Yeah.
And like, I didn't really think much of it, because like I'm thinking like, okay, well, this is... It's fine. It's a universe where they use magic rocks to bring people back to life from dust, and there's a giant alien like structure or whatever the fuck it was in the ocean. So like I can forgive that, but like the more I think about it, the more it kind of as the kids say, gave me the ick. But yeah, did you have any compunctions about that?
Not really. I mean, you know, that and Falcon too, the new Falcon played by Danny Ramirez in this.
Yeah.
I think because like, so, and getting back to the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, the show, my favorite parts of that show, well, I would say action wise, were like something like the aerial combat. Like, I think they did that really well in the series. And actually my favorite set piece in this, because it wasn't spoiled in the trailers, is the set piece with the two rogue pilots.
Yes.
And then the like, and them firing on the Japanese fleet. And then there is a very silly moment of him riding on the rocket like a
oh my god,
surfboard.
Yeah,
that was so stupid and totally out of character.
Yes,
very deeply silly. But besides that, I just like that sequence. I like the just the choreography of it. I guess maybe it was the editing and direction. I don't know what, but I actually had a sense of like where everything was, which I can't always say that for action movies, specifically MCU movies. But it was solid. Like I understood the stakes. I understood like where everything was, and I actually really thought that sequence was really good. And it has that. Again, I mean, you mentioned this really lifts from a lot of the Captain America movies, but it does have the War Machine moment where he gets like clipped. Basically, his wounds kind of get clipped. You kind of have that with Falcon here too. But see, I think it works here for me too, because like he tells it's kind of a Top Gun moment. Basically, it's like don't go for it, and he goes for it. He's kind of learning. But you know, I actually, you know, so I like that. I think if there, you know, in terms of if this is how Captain America is, where he is like the flying version and not the super soldier version, you know, basically, for example, like if they keep doing action sequences like that, and that works for me, because I don't know, I think somehow they're putting them together in a way that I think they're cool, but I think they are visually distinct from, say, how you would put together like a Doctor Strange fight sequence or something from any other character, or you know, how like the Thunderbolts action sequences probably will be like, it's because it's all aerial combat. So like so yeah, but I guess maybe I don't have the same issue with his bones being liquefied. I don't care.
I don't honestly, I don't either.
I don't also, I mean, I would get if people would have, my brother would have issues with that.
Oh,
he doesn't like superhero movies, and he's always
fair.
like, you can't fly that fast. I'm like, can we just go home?
Yeah. But then again, like 5 years ago, I think, well, I don't know the timeline or anything, but like 5-6 years ago in this universe, like he was gone, he was dust. So,
right.
Like, but it's the other thing, the one that actually kind of got under my skin a little bit, and that's weirdly not a pun, is that like this movie makes such a big deal about the adamantium of it all. And what bothered me about that is that like it felt like it was a big reveal, like, oh, adamantium, and there's like a kind of Cold War brewing about ownership of the adamantium from that. But the thing that bugged me about it is that like we've gone 20 years or so, almost 20 years, with vibranium being the like MCU version of adamantium. And now that obviously they're going to do X-Men and they're back in the fold and everything, they have to introduce adamantium. And I'm just like, it didn't feel like a big moment or anything, and it just felt like it felt like, okay, now there's this other thing that's exactly like the thing that we've had in the in the movies, but like here's a little bit of like an Easter egg, not even an Easter egg, just like a pointed reference that goes nowhere. Like, and for a movie that is about it, like about the fight for adamantium, I was thinking like for a moment, I was thinking like, are they going to show like X-Men or something? Or are they going to show mutants? Is that what the like finale, like the post-credit scene, which we'll talk about that, the post-credit scene is going to be? And like it's nothing. There's nothing about it.
I think that's one of this movie's problems is, which speaks to what you just said, is like this idea of like, let's set up the next thing without actually like having a substantial movie. Like that's what the MCU used to be really good at, is like, you can have those other building blocks and set up other movies, but you have to build them on top of a movie that's substantial enough that people want to rewatch, and not just little, effectively what is Easter eggs. I mean, it's more of a MacGuffin in this movie, because it's kind of what they have to chase after, and you know, it's the Americans versus the Japanese, and in procuring this this material or whatever. And so but it's like, I figure when I heard adamantium, I'm like, okay, well, I know that's a Wolverine thing, and they haven't even cast Wolverine, whatever. I know what they're setting up, I understand, and that's fine. Again, it's one of those things that would not bother me if it was a good movie. You know, but since it's not, then it's like not great.
Since there's not a lot of like meat on the bones of this movie, it's just, it feels like very it draws too much negative attention to that, because there's nothing to latch onto about it, and there's not much to latch onto overall in the movie. I will say,
like the post credit, like you said, I mean, we can just talk about it now, because
absolutely.
I think it ties in, because it's the classic thing of like, this is what the MCU used to, at least you'd have one stinger. I mean, you usually get a mid credit and post credit. This only has a post credit, which is whatever, but it's such a shrug, and it doesn't. It is. It's the classic like scene we've seen a million times, which is you know, the villain sit in prison with an ominous message for the hero who's on the other side of the bars or glass or what have you. And it's like, we've seen that scene in the MCU specifically, like it feels like a dozen times anyway. So it's been done better within this franchise even, but then it's such like, oh, people are coming. Like, it's like, are you kidding me? Like, I don't even know if that's setting up a Fantastic Four thing. Because it's like, there are other worlds. It's like, okay, well, I think Galactus and Silver Surfer are probably from different worlds. But it's just, again, it's such a shrug. And why would he even know? It doesn't, anyway. It's just stupid. And it's something that they obviously, you know, just reshot, because they're like, we can't have no, you know, things at the end ever. And that's what so much of this movie just felt like, it's just so like tactless in its delivery of, well, we have to, like, it obligatory. If I had to like, that's like one adjective, like, I don't think I put it in my review, but like, that's how this movie feels. Like, well, we have to do this because we've done it 34 other times. So like, we have to do this. And it's like, just like, it probably just felt like hell just getting this movie out. I mean, I bet like Feige and Julius Ona, like they probably just feel like they just took, I mean, sorry to be crass, but like a big dump. I mean, because it feels like it went through a lot of different iterations, not development hell in terms of like it was, but just a lot of, they had to, just a very I think a very mired production. And so I think they're probably at this point just got to be done with it and just kind of move on.
And like,
but, you know,
with that, like, I don't presume to know any of the specifics about the production or anything, but like, it really does, like you said, it feels like an afterthought of like an obligatory post-credit scene. But like, why not do like what they did with Multiverse of Madness, where the basically the post-credit stinger is like a preview of WandaVision or whatever, or no, I don't remember what it was. I think, no, the post-credit scene of something else was like a preview for WandaVision.
Multiverse of Madness, one of the stingers, the mid-credit one, they technically still haven't paid off. With Charlize Theron as you know, his some character that I don't remember her name. And then the post one that they did was the It's Finally Over with Bruce Campbell, which was pretty awesome.
Oh, that's right.
That was a fun one. But they usually do that. They usually do a mid-credit one that matters and a post-credit one that doesn't, or vice versa. They did like a little fun tag and then like an actual drink your be sure to drink your Ovaltine. And so like, this is just like, anyway. And that's just like the stinger stuff. But I mean, if we can talk about the antagonists in this movie,
really,
I think that's really.
Oh my God. Yeah. So like first I want to circle back to that because I think it was oh God, I can't remember what, like it might have been Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. I don't know. Something ended with like a preview of WandaVision. And like if they were going to basically do like an obligatory post-credit scene, like clearly there's enough footage of Fantastic Four to like have like a scene or something like, and if they had to have known that this movie was not the kind, like it wasn't going to, I mean, it is kind of making it kind of doing gangbusters a little bit, but like, yeah, because it's a Marvel movie, but like maybe do some extra insurance, and like if they don't have any idea for the post-credit scene, like have an extended scene of Fantastic Four, and like just, I don't know, it feels like a missed opportunity.
I mean, they have 2 big movies still to come, like even just something that's even tangentially even tied to Thunderbolts. I don't know, like it's just such a shrug, and like it's definitely, I wouldn't say this is the worst MCU movie, but that's got to be the worst post-credit or mid-credit one they've ever done. I mean, I can't think of one that's worse than those.
Same
than that, I should say.
It feels like the other like attempts to make like a cinematic universe from other studios, like it feels like that level of just
100%. Yes. It feels like another studio trying to be more. I mean, that's like the worst thing you can say. About like that it's trying to be like Marvel. I mean, to say that about an actual MCU movie, I mean, it's pretty damning, I think.
Yes. Oh, I agree. So the villains, though, let's talk about them. Where do you want to start?
Oh my God. Well, let's start with Signrider, because the one thing I do know about the production of this movie, I didn't get into all of it. I really try not to read a lot of stuff.
Same.
But this is one aspect that I knew Giancarlo Esposito like was done in reshoots, that he was a villain that was, his name's Sidewinder, and I kept thinking like he was like kind of coming in on the side or whatever. Sure. I think this is the classic thing where they're just like, just take someone who has played villains before, put him in a hat and a trench coat, and just throw him in here. Like that's exactly how it feels. He feels like he's out of a totally different movie. I don't understand how he's tied to the main villain in this, who we'll talk about in a second. Like he just feels like, an assassin, a pretty standard baddie. I think Esposito, again, he could play a character like this in his sleep. I don't think he's like bad in this, but it's just there's a scene later to that scene with him where he and Sam Wilson are talking, and it's supposed to be kind of like and like that scene totally feels like out of, like, it just feels totally removed from like what the movie should be, what the story should be. Yes. It just feels very insecure to me in terms of like, it's like, well, just, we need to have some kind of antagonistic force on Sam Wilson, just have someone throwing flash bombs and shooting at him. Like, I don't know.
And it really does feel like, again, it feels like just lifting off of Civil War with like Crossbones. Like that feels like a cameo for a villain that we don't know yet, and like it's so weird. I don't remember the specifics of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, but like I know that Sidewinder, according to Google, is like connected to the Serpent Society. I don't know if that was in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't, but I feel like there was some clandestine group in Falcon and the Winter Soldier that wasn't the Serpent Society, that like, I feel like, why not do that?
Yeah, I mean, and there's, I'm sorry, this is terrible, but like there was the actress who's tied in. She's in like Winter Soldier. She ends up being like an arms dealer or something in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Yeah. I forget the actress's name. I'm sorry, but like bring her back. I don't care. Like, it just whatever. Just don't do this, which is just like generic action explodey bullet person, like, you know, and it's nothing against Esposito. It's not his fault. He was probably called in. He probably was on set for like a week or something, you know. It's just like, you know, and again, it's this classic thing of like people probably aren't going to say no to doing these kind of movies. And I mean,
do you know if he was like called in to be added in, or is that conjecture?
I don't think I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
I haven't really
I mean,
looked
it feels
into
like
it.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, it certainly feels that way. And there's probably a lot of other stuff that's, you know, I know one of the only other things I know is that it was originally called New World Order.
Yes.
For the subtitle, and they changed it to Brave New World. So whatever. I don't really think either of them are that great in terms of subtitles. Maybe New World Order is better. I don't know, but I think they were worried about, I don't know, Illuminati inflation. I don't really know. I don't care. So anyway, but okay, so Samuel Stearns. So I didn't rewatch. Okay, so Tim Blake Nelson, if you had asked me whatever earlier this month before I saw this movie, like, was he in the MCU? I'm like, no, I don't think so. He was in Minority Report. You know, I would have been like, no, probably not. And it's like, well, he was, and you should have known that. Like, well,
right.
I didn't know that. Who is he? Well, he was a scientist in The Incredible Hulk. And I don't even remember in that movie if it's teased that he gets exposed to gamma. Maybe it is.
It is, yeah.
Okay, great. Well, okay, so that's fine, but I didn't remember it. And again, it's almost 20 years old. And so, like, were they really gonna? Is this really how they were planning on paying it off? Of course, the answer is no. Okay, so whatever. So he's the villain. Okay, my understanding. I don't know anything about this is just the text of the movie. Harrison Ford, okay, Thunderbolt, that's another thing. Okay, so William Hurt died, so they had to replace him with somebody. Another thing, again, I think just a lot of things were probably working as this movie's favor, but whatever. Anyway, so okay, Harrison Ford, he's president. He had a heart condition at some point. He went to Samuel Stearns and he said, "You need to make my heart condition better. A doctor can't do this. Only you can do this. And I'm going to pull you up at this black site, and your head is getting really gross and green and bulbous or whatever. But, you know, you're really smart and can do statistics. So you have to come up with heart pills for me, and don't do anything hinky with them. Just make sure it's gum I can chew and it solves my heart condition." Am I reading that right? Based on what Harrison Ford's character said in this movie?
Yes, that's my understanding. So in on the surface, that does track pretty well, because like in The Incredible Hulk, there is a scene where like a bit of Edward Norton's blood gets on like an open wound on Samuel Stearns' head, and like the last shot we see of Tim Blake Nelson is like his forehead like pulsating a little bit and growing. So like that is something that I've always like had been interested in seeing them pay off, just because like it was something that was dangling in the beginning of the MCU. At this point I didn't care to see it paid off at all.
But at least if they set it up, then that's good.
But, and like even the heart condition, I vaguely remember like in Civil War, like Ross mentions like he had a heart attack or something, and he's something about playing golf. I don't remember. So like that tracks and everything. It does make sense in terms of it being like a desperation thing, like him knowing that Samuel Stearns has like, you know, super genius stuff. Like I can buy into that and everything. It's a very stupid plan. It's a very stupid thing to trust him with, but but again, it's almost been 2 decades, and like we don't know like how, like he's being set up like Samuel Stearns, who apparently like the villain name is the leader. He's being set up as like this mastermind genius, and like we haven't seen him in 20 years, and we get like a quick like recap at the beginning, but like it's just like it feels like the movie does a piss poor job of trying to conceal him throughout like most of the runtime. And then when it's revealed that it's him, it's like, yeah, we know, we know. Yeah, this is him. Cool. All right.
Well, it's like it's classic thing of like, okay, so he is so smart that he can come up with this whole gamma radiation gum thing and get it to get it to him and all this stuff, but he can't figure out how to fool a guard to get out of a black site.
Right.
Like, it's the kind of stuff where I'm just like, he's the smartest guy, and like the stuff that he can do in this movie, like, and that's the other thing. It's like, not only are the things that are done in this movie like they're cribbed from Winter Soldier or Civil War or any of that stuff, but it's like the characters act so surprised. Like, okay, so the idea that these 5 people are being brainwashed to assassinate the president, or whatever. So I think in this he can do it just by sending flashing lights to their phone. Yeah. Like in the trailer. And that song to activate them. Like in the trailer, they make it seem like, or even in the movie, they make it seem like, oh, he picked these 5 people and like, oh God, he's so smart. Like, right. No, you find out he can just turn anyone into a rogue agent any minute by like hijacking their phone and the speakers on their phone. And it's just like, to me, it's just like, that's to the point where you talk about, his bones being like vaporized or whatever. That stuff I can deal with, but like, a villain that's literally so powerful that they can just brainwash anyone in the world in a minute. I'm sorry, it's just stupid to me.
I feel like there was something to how he was able to do that. I don't remember, because I remember when they get to like the base or something, like he's not able to like they test it by playing the music and no one turns. So like they know that there is. Like there's a method to it, but I don't remember or care to remember to pay attention to it. But that's another thing. Like, it is like we said, it's piecemealed from other movies, like very much Winter Soldier, even down to the shot of Isaiah running through the Oval Office and then jumping out the window. Like that's exactly like Bucky. And
that's my other problem. Okay, so fine. I'll go with he can brainwash anyone, basically. Just show him flashes, play the music, and then they're his. Okay, but the more annoying part of it to me is that Sam Wilson has seen this done before. Basically, it's like, what is brainwashing new to you? Like, you were literally in a show with a dude who was brainwashed. Like, and so. Like he's like, let me get to the bottom of this. It's like, I've seen the trailer enough times. Like, what do you think? It was like some conspiracy between Isaiah and the other 4? It's like, no, clearly they were acting against their. It's like, whoa, why does he act so confused? Like, this is brainwashing. Like within this is not how brainwashing really even works in real life, but within the confines of the MCU, it's like, Sam Wilson, you have seen this before. Like, you're really stupid for not. It's kind of a tough thing to beat because he can turn 2 pilots are in the air, just by it's like Mr. Bluetooth should have been this guy's name, because Mr. Blue is the song he plays, but he can hijack any speaker anywhere. It doesn't matter if it's like a speaker in the park. It can be some, the speakers on, a jet that's flying hundreds of miles an hour. So he's really good at that. So, that was just the thing to me. It was more galling that it's like that he was so. It was a real investigation to figure out what happened.
And it's a rehashed plot. That's a good point. It's so weird. To the Mr. Blue point, though, I will say that's a fun nod to the Incredible Hulk, because when Bruce is communicating with him, not knowing he's Mr. Green and he's Mr. Hulk, or Mr. Hulk. Mr. Hulk is my father.
Mr. Blue. Oh, I remember Mr. Blue, chatting with someone. I'd rewatched that movie. I mean, again, and so that's the thing is like, again, Ken Blake Nelson, obviously fine actor. For him to pay off after all these years, again, he's not going to say no to the paycheck and coming back and all that stuff. I think I would even probably be fine with maybe, Sam. Well, I would be fine with Samuel Stearns as. As a character, as an adversary for, I don't know, the Hulk or whatever, or any other character, that'd be fine. It's just the way that he was implemented in this movie, it didn't seem to gel with any of the. Again, he just wasn't really a very formidable villain to me. Like Zemo is one of my favorite villains, probably in all the MCU.
Yeah, same.
And so I think that's tough. for me, like coming off of a villain like that from Civil War, and he factored in a good bit in Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
Just have like someone like this who is just like, in my opinion, like comically overpowered and like, oh, well, he was so smart and he did all the gamma gummy stuff for, we get Red Hulk. And then by the time Red Hulk shows up, that he's the torch has been handed to him, and and he's going to be our new baddie for the rest of the movie. So it was just still, I just think this is, I mean, really, if you think of like those three antagonists, like between Samuel Stern, Sidewinder, and like Red Hulk, this is like just total villain problem in this movie.
Oh, absolutely. Like it made me nostalgic for like Phase 1 MCU where the villains weren't that great. But it's
Red
interesting.
Skull. Even a red villain.
Yeah, exactly. So what's interesting though, I will say in the movie's semi-defense, I do think that, and this is also kind of a problem, I do think that the motivation of Samuel Stern, the reason, like I'm sure that he could have found a way out of it and everything, out of the black site and everything. I think that his motivation was to destroy Ross, and specifically to destroy his legacy. So I could see him like keeping himself in that position so that he could get the upper hand to unleash Red Hulk and everything and do that.
Yeah.
The problem with that is this is all stuff that is based on the near 20 years between Incredible Hulk and now that Thaddeus Ross, that he has been using Samuel Stern's. Like it's all based in this, and like,
yeah,
it's just, it feels very.
I didn't understand the relationship at all. Like,
no.
Yeah, it was just like, it was just so, yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, he does mention that at the end, like, oh, I'm like destroying his legacy. And the reason that it was when he was president is because when he got some guarantee, Samuel Stern said, that when he became president, he would let him go. And then he didn't. It's like, why are you still taking gummies from the guy you screwed over? I don't know. Just stuff like that. I'm just like, anyway.
Which I feel like I'm going on the defensive, and I don't mean to, because I'm
no,
not.
It's good. I mean, there could be things I'm missing with it that make sense.
I would say the reason that he is keeping the medicine, doing the medicine, is specifically because he wants to live long enough to reconnect with Liv Tyler, to kind of bridge that divide.
Sure.
And like I will say, to that point, like that phone call scene was really solid. I thought that was really pretty heartwarming. And then when she pops up at the end, I'm like, yeah, okay. I saw a pretty funny like tweet or something, or letterbox things like, a president that's gonna step down after he does something wrong and hold himself accountable. Like, okay, what is this?
Right. That's the thing, is like, I think people are going to, because of like where we are, people are going to bring a lot of that into the theater and kind of read what they want into it. And the movie doesn't really give a lot of that. Like, this is not, in my view, I think it very smartly in terms of financially, or the Feige method, like it plays it very down the line. Like this is not a very political film.
No.
And that's fine. Like whatever.
Yeah.
We could argue about whether it needs to be or not, or has to be.
Yeah.
I think there's like little morsels of like racial subtext that I think are kind of interesting. I think that's probably the stuff that Julius Ona, based on his previous, not Clover Paradox, we're not talking about that, but like Loose, like that is very much a film that the entire, that film is very much about racial identity, and like how, institutionally, like how in this movie specifically, like there's that scene with Sam Wilson and Isaiah, Bradley, like when he's, and that to me was like a really sad scene, because he's like, there's basically like, there's no second chances. Like this, like, I think even at that point, like he knows he was brainwashed, but he's like, it doesn't matter. Like people saw what they saw, and that's it for me. And it kind of felt like almost like the end of like an appeals process or something. Like there's something to that scene that I think is pretty powerful, even like within the MCU or without. But that's like one scene. I'm like really kind of, it's not there probably at one point was more of that, or could have been more of that. So who knows? But anyway.
Yeah, I agree. And I will say, yes, it does play down the line. Yes, it's pretty like it's not very political. I will say one of the just ballsiest things that this movie does is something I've never seen before, showing having the president be an old white 83-year-old man. I couldn't believe my eyes. Yeah, it does. It does.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, Harrison Ford, I think, like, I think he does a solid job.
Yeah.
He definitely comes into a lot of, we've seen with Star Wars, Blade Runner, like, he's not doing very much of a character here.
Right.
I think he does a solid enough job. Like, I'm not putting this, really, I don't think really like any of the performances in this are really the problem or bad.
I agree.
I think most of my issues just come down to like direction and writing.
Absolutely. I will say, not to single him out, but like Danny Ramirez, I just never connected with that character. Joaquin Torres is his name. It really felt like, and I know that he's a comic book character, I believe. So like, I know that this isn't true, but like, it really felt like his character was a holdover from the previous, like, however many movies that there have been where they basically, like, there was a run of like 3 or 4 MCU movies and shows that ends with the hero getting like a child or a surrogate child.
Yeah.
And like, it felt like Joaquin Torres was supposed to be like a surrogate child in this movie, and like they just decided down the line, like, oh well, maybe we're not gonna build up toward this whole like Young Avengers thing or whatever. So let's age him up a little bit, but let's not spend too much money on the rewrites for it. So we'll keep some of the dialogue.
Well, and that's the classic like thing I was talking about, like with Adamantium and like the post credit tease and stuff. Like, I don't know if they're setting up a Young Avengers thing with this.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say like, I liked the scenes with like Anthony Mackie, Danny Ramirez, and Carl Lumbly, like the 3 of them. Like, I wish they could have had a lot more fun together, because like there's that scene where they're doing the like almost basically like flag football.
Yeah.
And Isaiah Bradley, of course, has the super serum, and the other 2 don't. So like, like that's a cool dynamic. And like, I don't think, Joaquin Torres, I don't think is like an amazing character.
No.
I would, agree with you, but like, I at least had fun watching that. There at least like a relationship there. Like, there's something there that they're actually trying to develop character wise, and that's pretty early on. But this movie just totally drops character.
Oh, it does
completely around. I'd say the halfway point, if I'm being generous. I mean, it just is plot, and there's this other character, we don't have the Dennis Dumvey thing, and he ends up dying by some gizmo that
Samus Stearns makes. I completely forgot. Yes.
That was stupid. Like, just stuff like that. And they just whip in new characters. We haven't even talked about the security advisor, like the Bat Seraph or whatever, that whole thing. And anyway, it's just a mess. It's a mess.
It really
there's no other way to.
And like with that, like also another just like copy and paste from a previous movie from Winter Soldier is like it like we have Captain America going to a secret base and discovering like the plot involves like a mastermind person who's been like transformed, that we've seen in the MCU before, that has been transformed in a certain way. It's just like in the Winter Soldier when Steve Rogers and Black Widow go to the old training facility or whatever, and they find Toby Jones on the TV. Like, it's just so blatantly lifted from other movies. And like, honestly, like I've said, I really like Anthony Mackie, and I feel like he really got the short shrift with this, because he deserves, like, he's a new Captain America. He deserves like an actual like Captain America movie, not something piecemealed from other installments.
100%.
Yeah. But what I will say is, one of the things I actually really latched onto and really enjoyed about this movie that I really wish would have been explored more and been more focal to the movie is the way that Sam Wilson deals with certain things, the way that he interacts, the way that he utilizes the script really emphasizes his work with the VA and counseling people with PTSD and everything. Like, he uses that in his Captain America role in really, really interesting and really poignant ways. And like, I really wish that was like the focus of the movie. Like, him, like, if it was more about him having concerns about like, can I be Captain America without like the super serum? Can I live up to the mantle of it? And then discovering like he has the tools to do that because he's, not a dick. It's just, I wish that there was more to that, but it feels like it's
and
just
Bucky
lost.
shows up in a scene here too, just to give him a pep talk.
Yes.
And, that is what it is. I mean, I've become a real Sebastian stan last year after after 2 movies of his that I liked quite a bit, especially A Different Man. I love the movie anyway.
Yeah.
So not that I wasn't a fan before, but anyway, so he's welcome presence to me, but again, I feel like he literally comes for like a pep talk, like you got this, and that's really all it amounts to. I think, and he's running for Congress or something. I mean, the idea, like you said, like this could be a different Captain America. Like both of those guys, like Steve Rogers and Bucky Barnes, like they're 100 and plus years old or whatever. Like the idea that they could, this Captain America, that it could be like truly a different generation, like. They just don't really do enough to actually distinguish him in those ways. And what you mentioned, like this would be the time to do it. This is his first movie. Don't just throw a bunch of characters and other distracting crap. Like, build the character. I think the first Captain America movie, I mean, there's certainly things that have not aged well about it. Certainly like the CG and other things, but like, that is one thing you can't say that movie doesn't do well. Like, it establishes who he is as a character, I think, extremely well. And so, I think Anthony Mackie deserved that here and just really did not get it. So I agree with you.
Like his compassion for like veterans and for like caring for like his VA work, his counseling work and everything could have been his version of Steve Rogers being like, I don't like bullies, like that kind of like thing that carries through like his entire run as Captain America. Like, it feels like a lost opportunity or something that's just muddled or brought down in the noise of everything else going on. And also the racial kind of dynamic as well that pops up infrequently in the movie, like I feel like should have been more pointed, more focused. Like, there's a scene where, like, after he has a confrontation with Ross, after the attack, he says like, he called me son, and it's just like explore that a little bit more, like get deeper with this, guys.
See, that I knew right after that scene, I knew it was going to follow with a scene of him being pissed off about it, and that was as far as it was going to go, and that's exactly what happened. I just think that this isn't I think they're too much of wimps to really go there.
I agree.
And that's why that one scene, of Isaiah Bradley in jail, I think there's lines in there that are clearly meant to speak to institutionalized racism.
Yes.
And and just, the prison system, all sorts of things. I mean, it's there. You don't have to look very deeply for it, but and even that stuff would be okay. But I knew, like, if we were going to get anything like son or boy from Harrison Ford, that it was going to be and then they're not going to explore it any more than that. And whatever. It's just, I don't know. I guess it's because I didn't expect very much from this movie, but it still is disappointing. Given that there are little things in there, and it's like they're not gonna deal with that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Which is a bummer.
And I'm glad that we're here to talk about that. Right. Two white guys.
I was watching Questlove documentary, Sly Lives, which is I don't need to talk about that too much, but really good documentary about Sly and the Family Stone, Sly Stone specifically. And the subtitle for that movie is like The Burden of Black Genius. And it really, like, I think there is a little bit in this movie about not just being the new Captain America, but being a black Captain America. Like, that is kind of embedded in what he's talking about, but it's just like it being, being a black man put on that and put in that pedestal and like replacing someone else, like that is a huge responsibility. And I'm sure, again, like Anthony Mackie, like I'm sure he feels that, but it's just not really something that the movie delves into. I don't think it wants to. And
no, and
whatever.
And I think that that's also evident. Like this is me maybe reaching a little bit, but like even in like the trailer, I feel like there was stuff that should have been in the movie, like the line that he said, like the whole scene with him initially with Ross, where he's like, watch yourself, you're not Steve Rogers, I'm not. Like even like in the trailer he says like, I'm thinking about making Captain America another military installation and all that. Like that's not in this movie. This movie is him saying like he wants him to start up the Avengers again, and then it turns into him being like, can I actually do that? Can I be like the forefront of the Avengers? It's like they were all set to do this kind of like Black Captain America in the like as an arm of the military, while also exploring like how like Isaiah Bradley had his experiences with that, and like how that like having that kind of that history explored, and then they chickened out and was like, well, let's talk about the Avengers again.
It wouldn't surprise me if that was and maybe that was some of the stuff that Julius Ona like wanted to get in there.
Yeah.
And this has 5 credited screenwriter. Yeah, it's just usually, like I said, you just can't see the seams as much as you see with this movie. It just feels scraggly and just like a patch job. And it's a bummer. I mean, I just hope that, the next time for the next Captain America movie, who knows what, I mean, you can't even tell within the next 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, or anything past that, certainly probably not even that far, what they're going to do. But if they make another Captain America movie with Anthony Mackie, I just hope that they figure out what they want to do with this character, the way that they figured out, honestly, pretty early on what they wanted to do with Steve Rogers. That would be my main thing, is just figure out the character. And write a movie around that, and don't just write a movie like, well, we gotta have him face. Well, let's pull a villain back from almost 20-year movies.
And we can wind down here and everything, but like to circle back to the Bucky Barnes cameo, I will say like in that moment, like I was delighted to see Sebastian Stan because I'm also a fan, but like that whole scene, 2 things stood out to me. One is that, oh my God, there is like, this is really hammering home the fact that there's no chemistry with any of the supporting characters in this movie. Now they have a character who like has a strong bond with Sam Wilson, and it's like night and day. It's like, oh my God. And the second thing was that I really liked that it ends with Bucky saying like, I love you, man, and leaving. And like, I just thought that was nice. That was nice, like, camaraderie, I think.
In terms of in-movie cameos, like it's solid. I actually didn't really have a problem with it. They've done way worse and egregious ones. And I agree with you. I mean, they're good together. It made me want to rewatch the show, honestly.
Me too, kind of.
Because I kind of actually liked it. Came out, that was the second one after, that was WandaVision was first, which I really liked that one. And then I think Falcon and Winter Soldier was after that. And like, again, I really like Zemo. Like he's in a good bit. We got a great meme out of it. He's wrong, or he's out of line, but he's right. That's like amazing. I always think of that scene. So it made me want to rewatch it, honestly. I mean, it probably has, anyway, there are quite a few MCU series I haven't seen.
Same here. I fell off.
Hawkeye. I don't even.
And like we
do a whole other podcast about how. The Disney Plus series. Of
my God,
the MCU brand. We can.
I had such a bug about doing like, I'm going to do episode reviews for Patreon for every Marvel show, and then like they just kept coming out. And I'm like, I can't. But the kind of final thing, going back to talking about the Avengers and everything, what's amazing to me is that we are at the point where we are so deep into phase 4. Like there's been so many different things that have changed over the course of this phase. Like I feel like there's so many disparate things, like regarding like multiverse and with like returning characters, like all like the TVA, like everything that's going on. It feels kind of hilarious and a little bit like an impending train wreck that this movie came out in February 2025, and in the movie we are getting the president saying like, I want you to start the Avengers back up. I want you to bring the Avengers back. And like, that's something that we heard in like in the first iteration of the MCU. Like, we heard that at the end of Iron Man, and then it paid off like 4 years later with bringing out the Avengers. Like, here we are apparently a year away from Avengers Doomsday, and like, we don't have the Avengers. Like, I don't know how that's going to play out. And I know that it was supposed to be Kang
in terms
Dynasty
of like next steps, I mean, it's you know, they're going to do whatever with Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four, and obviously I hope both of those movies are better made, better movies. So I think they're kind of, at this point, it's like, this movie's out and people will probably forget about it pretty quickly once those other two come out, whether they're good or not. Especially Fantastic Four, that's a big deal because, you know, those haven't been in the MCU, those characters haven't been in the MCU yet. So
right.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, kind of a bummer.
Yeah, kind of a bummer. So we are going to conclude our review of Captain America Brave New World. Once again, Brent, you rated it 2 stars and I rated it 3. I'm going to go into a solo secondary review. Do you have time for a potpourri section, Brent?
Sure.
Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and go into a secondary review here in a moment. But before we leave Brent for a little bit, Brent, could you tell people where they can find you online? And yeah, where they can find you online. You can just say your website.
awakeinthedark.com, and I'm on all the usual social media platforms.
Nice.
So search Awake in the Dark, I'll probably be on there.
Nice. All right. Well, that is our review of Captain America Brave New World. Brent, thank you for joining me for that. And yeah, let us know what you thought of Brave New World. Now I'm going to go ahead and go into my secondary review of the evening to talk about One of Them Days. So stay tuned. And before we get to our secondary review, I want to take a quick moment to remind you that if you like the show, please take a moment to follow us on social media and subscribe to and rate the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube Music, or wherever your preferred podcast app is located on your phone, whatever your preferred podcast app is. And don't forget to subscribe to the Obsessive Viewer Podcast YouTube channel and our TikTok, I guess, as well. I'm posting more and more videos there and sometimes live streams of podcasts. More content is there. And if you're interested in starting a podcast of your own, you can go to Libsyn and use promo code OBSESS when you sign up for a new account. You'll get up to 2 months free depending on when you sign up, and we'll get a commission on it as well. More details on that in the show notes of this episode. And now back to the show.
Tell me I view obsessively.
You know we getting a white
person in the jungle?
I am right here if you guys ever want to have a girls' night. A little Prosecco and pals.
child. I saw one with a cat in a stroller.
Mama rules. You paid the rent, right? I did. Hey, what, motherfucker? Oh, you look real alopecia today.
Do you have the rent?
Your boyfriend took our rent money and dipped.
I invested in it. This is our future.
All right, so for this week's secondary review, I'm going to share my non-spoiler thoughts on One of Them Days, which is currently available still in theaters, but also on VOD, on the PVOD stuff. And yeah, the premise, according to IMDb, is when best friends and roommates Drew and Alyssa discover Alyssa's boyfriend has blown their rent money, the duo finds themselves going to extremes in a race against the clock to avoid eviction and keep their friendship intact. The movie was directed by Lawrence Lamont. This was his directorial debut, and the writer was Sarita Singleton. And the cast includes Keke Palmer, SZA. I'm in my head about how she pronounces her name. I think it's something else, but SZA, Vanessa Bell Calloway, Lil Rel Howery, Cat Williams, Maud Apatow, and Joshua David Neal. And like I said, this is going to be a non-spoiler review. It'll probably be a pretty quick review, but I really liked this movie. It was a lot of fun. I ended up rating it 3.5 stars. The thing that I kind of came away from it thinking was, I really, really want to see more buddy comedies with like Keke Palmer and SZA, both like in like the buddy comedy. Them as a duo in this movie was an absolute delight. They had incredible chemistry, and it goes to some places where obviously like this type of comedy is one where, you know, their friendship is going to be tested, as the plot summary it alludes to in the plot summary that I just read. And like the way that they handle that, the actors in this movie, the way that they handle that is really genuine and really just like it's a credit to the writing and everything, but the performances, like you really feel that bond being fractured and the bond already kind of being in some dire straits early on in the movie. And it really works. It works really well. And the other thing that I kind of came away from this movie thinking was, for as serious and as heavy as the stakes are in this movie, because it's about two friends who are living like paycheck to paycheck, and they are struggling to make rent, and then they find that they have like 6 hours to come up with their rent money, or else they're going to be evicted immediately. This is a very kind of serious plot, a serious and relatable plot to a lot of people in this country. And it's something that I admire about this movie, is that it doesn't shy away from the seriousness, the heaviness of the plot that it set out for the characters, but it also does, it like handles it in a way that never makes the movie not fun. It does not feel like this is like a dramatic sort of endeavor for them or situation that they find themselves in. Instead, the seriousness of their situation and the pressure to get the money and everything is really, like, it is imbued with that funness of both of both SZA and Keke Palmer just playing off each other incredibly well, and also everyone surrounding them in the movie, like the supporting cast, and really just the environment, the places that they go and everything is so varied and fun. And there's this like hint of a heightened comedy, like absurd comedy thing at play, but it still remains really grounded, which I think is important because it's not necessarily satirizing any particular groups or anything, but it is poking fun at some institutions and some things throughout the movie. And I think that complements this serious kind of plot line, this serious sort of drama that's unfolding with these characters. It really complements it well because it creates this like heightened, like absurd comedy, but it's in this grounded, like realistic, like you believe that these situations happen because they do. And it's really fun. It's really fun. That's the best adjective that I can have, that I can come up with, is that this is a very fun movie. And some of those examples of like heightened, almost absurdist comedy is the biggest part of it is that they go to a payday loan place, and like there's like levels of like there's sight gags, and there's like this big, like almost like they're walking into a parody of their lives. Like they go into the building, and first of all, Cat Williams is outside screaming about how like, no, don't do it. You can't, like, stay away from this place. It's dangerous. It's horrible. You don't want to go down this road. And like, he's saying these things that are like truthful, honest things that are like things that, you know, people that are in those fiduciary issues or fiduciary problems, like they need to heed those warnings and everything. Like there's just such a level of truth to the comedy in this movie that I found really, really compelling and really kind of just sweet and earnest in a way. But like as they walk into this building, it's like the combination of having like this giant like corkboard with pictures of people that are delinquent on their loans, and talking about how it's basically like a bounty is on their heads for the money, and then like seeing this like satirized kind of commercial promoting the payday loan place on the TV, just to kind of give us a taste of like how predatory this kind of institution is in the movie and in real life. It like brings us into this kind of just heightened comedy arena, and it's really punctuated by the person that assists them is like this obnoxious, like uncaring person who like she lacks any empathy. She is laughing in their face, and it's such a great like distillation of how it feels to be in a situation where, you know, you are at the end of your rope. You are literally like, you don't know how you're going to survive this hardship, this issue, this money problem. And like it is a reflection of the world laughing at you because of it. And it's really like, there's like these little pieces of that kind of commentary throughout the movie that I really appreciated as someone who has lived paycheck to paycheck more times than I haven't, and still pretty much am. It's really, really tough. It's really tough. Especially with rent increasing and everything all the time. But anyway, it's really relatable. It's really, there's a level of, lived experience in this movie that I feel is very evident by the performances and the writing and the directing and everything. But also it's this just fun, environment as well, this fun tone that is sustained throughout it that I really appreciated. And what I also really liked is that this is a pretty brief movie. It's a little over an hour and a half long, but it doesn't, like, it is brisk. It is greatly paced. The story kind of gets like to a point where there's like a pivot that works really well, surprisingly so, because I don't want to give anything away, but there's a pivot in the story that, like, I was thinking like, oh, the movie's basically over. Cool. But I looked and I still had like half an hour left, and where the movie goes from there is really interesting and really fun, and really, scary also in a lot of ways. It's very good. It's very good. Performances, like I said, are all really good. The supporting characters, there are some really interesting, fun, over the top characters in some respects, but in a good way. Joshua David Neal, he plays Kishan in this movie, and he is the kind of deadbeat boyfriend of Alyssa, and he is just like a freeloader, and he's the inciting incident, that he's the one that spent the rent money and everything that kicks off all of the drama. But like, there's something about his performance. He is so like, he has like this like persona to him that reminded me a lot of like Damon Wayans Jr. Just like that kind of calm presence in some respects, but he also has this like kind of like lost puppy feel to him that I found really, really weirdly charming. And it's really interesting because that charming aspect to his character is so in contrast to like who he is in the movie, is this guy who's just freeloading off of his girlfriend, and he has spent the rent money and put them in this situation. And it's just so, it's really interesting. It's a really interesting line to ride for him, and I think he did a great job, Joshua David Neal, in the movie. And yeah, I'm kind of not sure where else to go with this, because there's some really good stuff in here that I don't want to give too much away about. But there is one sequence where they are they're at a clinic of some kind. That's all I'll say. But the way that unfolds, like, you kind of get this sense, like, you know how it's going to play out. You know, like, they're setting up for an interesting comedic beat, but the level that it goes to, like, the amount of just the amount of makeup effects, or the amount of squibs, I'll say, that's used in that is just like, it kicks into a completely different gear, and it works really well as a really funny moment, funny and shocking and surprising. Which also, that's another thing that I really liked about this movie, is that it is taking its premise of these two women who are trying to get $1,500 to pay their rent before the end of the day. It takes that premise and it goes through all of the scenarios that they could do, that they should do. It does a very smart, very good job of going through the paces of, like, their options, what they are, how they will go about trying to get the money. And as the clock ticks, and as their situation becomes more and more dire, there's more, like, kind of Hail Marys that are thrown that play out pretty well. So yeah, overall, I rated this 3.5 stars. That might be a little low given how much I'm kind of praising it, but I think it's a really, really, really solid comedy. I really enjoyed it, and I really appreciated the kind of commentary that it provided, the kind of serious tone, serious things. And there's a lot of fun, like, cultural comedic beats. Like, Maude Apatow is this, like, seemingly affluent white woman who moves into the complex that they live in this movie. And it's so funny to see how, like, that kind of, like, how her experience with the landlord differs from the main character's experiences with the landlord, and how there's, like, the undercurrent of, like, gentrification and trying to really sell the community and everything at the expense of the people who live there already. There's a lot of really interesting stuff there. So I don't know. That is just about all I've got for One of Them Days. I really enjoyed it. I could see myself revisiting it at some point in the future. It's a really good, I feel like this is going to be a really good, like, throw it on and just have some fun watching it types of comedies. And those are not necessarily in short supply, but it's always fun when this type of movie comes out that kind of just scratches that itch. It's like this studio comedy that does some interesting things, that isn't just like a cash grab or just a by the numbers kind of comedy. It has some interesting things to say, but it's also existing in this comedic realm that has a lot of like heightened experiences and really unique characters and memorable situations that play out very organically. So I really liked it. So that is my secondary review for One of Them Days. Once again, I rated it 3.5 stars. If you watch it, or if you've seen it, let me know what you thought of it. And yeah, we are going to bring Brent back into the show to round out the episode with a brief potpourri section. So stay tuned for the return of Brent Leuthold on this episode of the Obsessive Viewer Podcast.
They tell me I view obsessively.
All right, and now to wind down the episode, we're going to have a probably brief potpourri section, which if this is your first time listening, this is the part of the podcast where we kind of wind down and talk about things we've watched lately, things we're looking forward to, whatever we want, as long as it smells good. And Brent has returned. He took a lengthy bathroom break. I don't know what was going on in there, but I was able to squeeze in a secondary review while he did his own secondary review in the bathroom. Brent, welcome back, and I'm sorry.
You didn't even do a number 2 joke, man.
Yeah. Oh, that was the secondary review.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. There we go. All right.
Yeah. I should have called it a number 2 review, and then anyway. So Brent, we're going to do Potpourri. Since you're the guest, I'm going to let you go first. What have you watched lately? What do you want to bring for Potpourri?
Aubrey and I watched a movie last night called Magpie.
Okay.
This is a thriller that Shout Studios put out pretty late last year. It's available to rent. It's like a $5-6 rental. I don't know what streaming service they kind of like are affiliated with, so I imagine it'll be streaming probably at some point. But I was delightfully surprised. Daisy Ridley has done quite a few movies like within the past year or two, like Young Woman in the Sea, The Marsh King's Daughter, which is a really, really terrible movie title, but pretty good movie. And Sometimes I Think About Dying was one that I saw through Sundance, and I forget who put that out. Anyway, so this one, Magpie, is it's a thriller. It's she is her husband is an author, and then their daughter is basically like a child actress, and so there's this movie that's being shot that's like a period piece that's an adaptation of the book that the father wrote, and then their daughter is cast in the movie. And so basically, he like will bring her to set, and he was the screenwriter. And so he basically kind of he becomes like, he has like this I guess not crush or whatever with one of the actresses on set. And so he's a dick. He's awful. So it's what it basically is this kind of like, he's like trying to like start up this affair, and Daisy Ridley's character is like, it's like, is she gonna find out or not? And it's basically kind of a thriller around that. Okay. It was it was surprising. I think it's actually pretty intelligent in how it deals with, I mean, the husband character he's awful, but I do think it deals with kind of like marriage dynamics. They have 2 kids actually, so it's the one who's on set. I don't know exactly how old she is, but they have a newborn baby as well. So like Daisy Ridley is like taking care of this baby while he goes off, basically like is trying to instigate this affair. And so what I like about it is it's very cat and mouse in terms of like, who's the victim here and kind of who's playing who. This is so weak because I think it's such it's such a bottom shelf comparison, but kind of like it has that sort of a bit of that nastiness of Gone Girl to it. Okay. Where like, again, you're sort of your allegiances sort of like start to spin around. Like you start to feel bad for maybe one character and then another, and then you kind of realize they're kind of all bad. That sort of thing. Sure. It has that sort of vibe to it. It's a different movie than Gone Girl. It's not as good. But Daisy Ridley is really great in it. And yeah, it's fun. It's like 90 minutes. It doesn't overstay its welcome. I should mention the other 2. Shazad Latif plays Ben, that's her husband, and then Matilda Lutz plays Alicia. She's the actress that that he's trying to kind of get with. She was actually the lead in the movie Revenge, which is Coralie Fargio. Oh, God. Her film Before the Substance, which is a good movie. Nice. So the 3 of them, they're kind of like the 3 main ones in this. There's like. It's not a spoiler. There's like a dinner scene at the movie. This is like really, really good. Okay. Nice. So yeah, it's a fun thriller. Not going to change the world, but we were pleasantly surprised by it. So that's Magpie, and it's available to rent.
Very cool. I will be on the lookout for that. That sounds kind of up my alley, and it sounds pretty interesting, surprisingly interesting. So yeah, thank you. For my potpourri, I am going to talk quickly about 2004's Taking Lives, which I've been on this kind of kick of like late 90s, early 2000s, like detective thriller, serial killer thriller movies. Because on a whim, like a few weeks ago, actually it's because I started the year off in the theater seeing the 4K reissue of 7 in the theater, or the IMAX version of it. And that led me to rewatch Silence of the Lambs, and then I've been going through a whole kick there. But Taking Lives is okay. It is this like serial killer whodunit that is like the kind of concept of it is interesting, because the serial killer that they're hunting, he takes on the identities of the people that he kills. And that's really interesting. But this movie wants very badly to be 7. Like, even down to like the opening credit sequence is like clearly a ripoff of 7.
Oof.
Yeah. And like, it's an interesting movie, but what sucks is that like, it has this kind of like the whodunit aspect of it is so obvious. Like, it is painfully obvious. And like, once the kind of turn happens, it's like, oh yeah, you can see this coming a mile away. But the other side of that is like, when that happens, a piece of violence happens that's like really interesting. And then the movie kind of shits the bed a little bit in the ending, but it's kind of interesting the way that it plays. It's almost laughable the way that it plays out, but it was interesting. It was interesting. So that's a very lukewarm.
Is Angelina Jolie in that one?
Yeah. She plays a detective. I want to say that she's like an American detective, and she goes to Montreal. So there's a little bit of like a fish out of, she's an FBI agent, who is
better or worse than the Bone Collector.
Oh, better than the Bone Collector. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't like the Bone Collector.
Yeah. It was bad. Yeah. But yeah, that's my review of Taking Lives. It was interesting. Ethan Hawke is kind of he's a witness to one of the murders. He does a pretty decent job. And then Kiefer Sutherland pops up and he's okay. It was okay. Yeah, it's interesting because it's one of those movies that I owned for a long time because I like was working at Blockbuster, like a year or two after it came out. And I bought like previously viewed ones, like they had the whole stack of like previously rented movies that you can buy. And I got like a discount with my employment there. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to buy like a bunch of like, $2 or $3 movies. And it's going to be, it's great because, streaming services don't exist yet. So it's a movie that had been on my shelf for years. And like, I knew the cover art of it very well. And I finally watched it and it was okay.
All right,
yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. But I think that'll just about do it for this week's episode of The Obsessive Viewer. Brent, once again, thank you for joining me, and let people know where they can find you again, if you wouldn't mind, and tell us what review you have coming up. And
The Monkey will be next. I'm going to be seeing that here this evening, and then in terms of where to find me, wakeinthedark.com is still probably the best place. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, X, Blue Sky, Letterboxd, all those.
Nice. All right. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Brent. It has been a pleasure. And that's it for this week's episode of The Obsessive Viewer. As always, thank you so much for listening, and make sure to follow the show on social media and subscribe to the podcast on your preferred podcast app. Also, check out Obsessive Viewer Podcast's other shows, Tower Junkies, a Stephen King podcast hosted by Tiny and myself, and Anthology, the Twilight Zone and Classic Sci-Fi podcast. And make sure you subscribe to Odd Trilogies so you don't miss my appearance on it in the next week or so. Next week on The Obsessive Viewer, I'm going to be reviewing The Monkey as well, and for a secondary review, maybe Grand Theft Hamlet, but I'm not sure. Until then, thank you guys so much for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode. And now, enjoy this short clip from a recent Patreon exclusive episode. For the full episode and more Patreon exclusive content, sign up at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. But it's a really interesting testament to the story being told being about this man who is trying to create a new life for him and his family after their home has been ripped apart from the war, and while also kind of channeling the pain and the anguish and the horrors that he saw and experienced during the war into this piece of art. And this kind of artistic endeavor with the project at the center of it. Thank you for listening to the Obsessive Viewer podcast. This episode was produced and edited by me, Matt Hurt. If you have feedback, thoughts on our episodes, or just want to connect, you can email me at matt@obsessiveviewer.com. For more information on this show, including a full archive of our episodes and show notes, visit obsessiveviewer.com. And if you enjoyed the show, please give us a follow on social media and subscribe to us on your podcast app of choice so you never miss an episode. Also, consider rating and reviewing the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Audible to help increase our visibility and grow our community. If you want to support the show and get early access to new episodes, as well as a steady stream of exclusive episodes, you can join our Patreon at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. For information on more podcasts presented by obsessiveviewer.com, visit obsessiveviewer.com/podcasts. Our theme song is A Little Mad Sometimes by As Good As It Gets. For more of their music, check them out on Spotify and at asgoodasitgetsmusic.com. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Get up to 2 months of free podcasting service with Libsyn. Check out the show notes for your promo code to get started podcasting today.